5 o'clock. People are filing in. I see Rav Aaron is here, and we're gonna, and I know that Rabbi McLashley will be joining us shortly. So let's proceed. I'll proceed with the bracha, and we'll go from there. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Right? Okay. So welcome everyone. A very fascinating thing happened. I don't know if you saw this in the news. We just finished last week, of course, Parsha Lech Lecha, and I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this. The Argentinian president Javier Milei just had to swear in a new economics person into their government, and he was sworn in on the Torah, and it was the Argentinian president who decided to give a Devar Torah about the Parsha. So he talked about the Parsha Lech Lecha, and then he talked about how, you know, what happens in the Parsha, and how this person who he's appointing to be the economic dude or whatever is somewhat, you know, like it has his task ahead of him, because like Abraham, he's expecting this guy to help them, Argentina, become a great nation. So I thought it was pretty cool to see the president, firstly, someone being sworn in on a Torah. That was kind of neat. And then to see, you know, the president of Argentina give a little speech about what the Torah meant, like as if it's a bar mitzvah. It was kind of cool. So that's that happened this past week. So today, now we're at the next parsha right after that one, Vayeira, and it means and he appeared. Okay, and it's a very interesting parsha. I'm sure that Aaron will, Rav Aaron, hopefully will fill in a lot more of the details. Immediately, of course, I read it, and I got 3 lines into it, and I immediately have questions, of course. But let me. In fact, I'll just start with the questions. I mean, in the previous chapter, what we didn't get to was a little bit about Abraham, and now we're getting to all the other stuff, Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and Isaac, and all the good stuff happens in this parsha, and it's like jam packed. But I have questions right off the bat. So, Aaron, you're sideways on the.
I think you're sideways.
You're sideways. One of us is. There you go. All right. So, do you want me to ask my questions? Do you want to start with Vayeira?
Can I change the orientation? Is there a way to do that?
I don't believe you're allowed. You can change your orientation. I think you are who you are, depending on how you're born.
Well, I think I can interpret. I can identify with being landscape or portrait.
Okay. All right. So, do you want to talk?
Yeah. So let's get into it. So.
Because I told everyone already, I have already at the 3rd line I started having questions. So.
All right. So this is really good, because it ties into Lech Lecha, and the big question, that one of the many big questions that I always had with Lech Lecha is why did Hashem choose to? Did you do the bracha yet?
Yes, I did the bracha.
Why did Hashem choose Avram to begin with? I mean, we know the backstory, but Lech Lecha just begins with like all of a sudden, go to yourself, go to yourself. So we have, it opens with Hashem speaking to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And now, so that is Hashem speaking to Abraham. And let's take a look at the word Vayeira. That is this week's Parsha. Vayeira starts with Hashem appeared.
And he appeared, yes.
So we have last week's Parsha. He's telling him. This week's Parsha, he's appearing to him. Now,
which is interesting right off the bat because he's only supposed to appear in person before Moses. So you see,
yeah, but he doesn't even do that. Remember, there's the cleft in the rock thing, which is my favorite portion of the Torah. But this is what it says. So we'll continue. Let's just start with the first three verses, and let's see if we can get beyond the third verse for an hour. It says, Hashem appeared to him in the plains of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day.
Yep.
Hashem is appearing to Abraham while Abraham is in the plains of Mamre, while Abraham is sitting in the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. We know that what has happened so far is Abraham has circumcised himself as making the covenant with Hashem. And this is the third day, the commentators tell us that this is the third day after the circumcision. And it's said that 3 days after an operation is the most difficult time in recovery. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you can chime in on that because you have that medical experience. But the third day is supposed to be very
it takes a while for bad shit to manifest. It usually takes about 3 days after you have an operation. Then it's either a go or a no. So it's about right.
So then it says he lifted his eyes and saw. So let's assume that's Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And behold, 3 men were standing over him.
But it doesn't use the word men, actually. It uses the word figures.
Well, okay, the translation is 3 men, but let me
the translation is 3 men, but the word is 3 figures.
Hine shlosha anashim.
Aha!
Anashim. So anashim is translated as
what Rabbi McGlashley just said.
It's men. Anashim is translated as men, but what he's alluding to is correct. It's explained that these are actually malachim.
Yeah,
these are actually angels. I'm sorry.
So it's translated as 3 men, and the Rashi tells us that these are 3 angels. But let's continue. Why are 3 angels coming here? I mean, this is a big mystery. Okay, he perceived, meaning Abraham perceived them. So Hashem appears to Abraham. Abraham perceives the 3 men. So he ran toward them from the entrance of the tent. So Abraham is sitting at his tent, holding his groin in pain. And he sees the 3 men and he bows toward the ground. Now, this is very interesting too. And he said, my Lord, if I find favor in your eyes, please pass not away from your servant. So a couple of big things come out to me. Then he says, let some water be brought, wash your feet and recline beneath the tree. I will fetch a morsel of bread. So he then feeds them and he demonstrates hospitality. That's where the Jewish tradition of hospitality it comes from, is Abraham waiting at the gates, even while he's in pain, waiting for a guest to host a guest. But there are several things that happen here that are quite interesting. How is Hashem appearing to Abraham? Because we know that Hashem does not appear in any particular type of form. So I think the Torah is saying these 3 men, when you keep on reading, you say Hashem is appearing to him in the guise of the 3 men. We later learn from the commentaries that the 3 men are angels. What does Abraham do? He's bowing to these men. Now, at this point, Abraham should know better than to bow to a person, right? That would be a big no-no. We know throughout Jewish history that Jews have been martyred for not bowing to kings, to leaders, the story of Purim bowing to Haman, Mordecai not bowing to Haman. So what was happening in Abraham's mind where he was bowing to these three men? Because clearly that would violate this whole notion of the only person you bow to, and not the only entity that you would bow to would be to God.
I do want to point out, because I happen to be skipping ahead lately for reasons but that Jacob, when he meets Esau, I noted that he falls and he bows to Esau, and he bows to 7 times specifically. And that stood out to me because of exactly what you're saying here, which is you're not supposed to bow to another.
And no less, he bows toward the ground.
Yeah.
So this is like a big bow. And he says, and then he addresses him, my Lord. It says Adoni, which means my Lord or my master, which is very close to how we refer to Hashem in certain prayers. We'll say Adonai would be the way we would say Hashem's name during liturgy. And here he is saying Adoni, my master. Mm-hmm. If I find favor in your eyes, so he's supplicating himself to them. If I find favor in your eyes, please pass not away from your servant. How is he's just like bowing to them and supplicating, and he's saying, I am your servant. And he has no idea who these guys are. So
can I launch in yet or no?
Launch in, go.
Really?
Go.
All right.
Here
we go. Here we go. I'm taking it off. All right. So let's talk about Avram for just a second. You're right. He's absolutely known for his hospitality, right? And he's got a chuppah, which is a tent. It's open on all 4 sides, so that he can.
Not a chuppah. It's an ohel. An ohel.
Oh, yes. Yes, true. Yes. And it's open on all 4 sides so that he can receive anybody from all directions. Okay. And so he's sitting there, just like exactly what you said. And it says, but if you read the Hebrew, this is where I got, and you sort of alluded to this. So the 3rd word in the text, if you look at it, is the tetragrammaton, Yud Hey Vav Hey, which now you saw like my cats we're gonna have a discussion as to whether or not that was holy or not. Sorry. So you'll notice that they use the tetragrammaton here, so that when we
you're losing me. The tetragrammaton, you're losing me with the geometry.
The third word, right?
Okay.
Is we pronounce that word as Adonai. It's Yud Hey Vav Hey.
Yud, wait, let's do it right. Yud. Hey.
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 I said hey.
K.
K.
Hey. Because when we're going through this, when you say you're not, so there's the prohibition against saying Hashem's name in vain. Right. So there's 2 ways that you would say the tetragrammaton. There's 2 ways you would say the Pythagorean theorem. Okay? One way would be Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, because now you're putting a separation between them.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Or you take the Hey and you say K. Yud
okay.
K.
Well, that's
Vav,
okay.
K.
That's another one of those roundabout ways. But I'll just want to address it directly. It's the 4-letter name of God. Okay.
The Pythagorean way of saying it.
Right. And when we get to that, we usually read it as Adonai, because we don't want to say the name. Okay.
Yeah, but we really don't even say Ado. We really don't say that. We would say Ado Shem, or we would say we'd use something else. But you really aren't like right. Ado. And then Noi, when you put the 2 together, is how we say it in prayer in our liturgy.
All right. So So there you go.
One thing,
We're at-
for purposes of chinuch, it is permissible if you're teaching someone in chinuch how to say the bracha, what have you. It is permissible to use the Shem Hashem, but he's quite correct. You use the word Elokim with a quote Elokim, and you'd say the word Ad Hashem, except for purposes of chinuch. When you're teaching, then it's permissible. You have to teach how to say the name.
Okay, good. So good. So we're good we're covered. So I want to go over that, right? So it starts off with an explicit, okay, God, Hashem appears before Abraham, right? That's the third word of this line tells you that we're talking about the deity, okay? The deity appears, okay? And he's sitting there, and he looks up and he sees three figures. And then if you see on the line 3, he says out loud, there's essentially a quote, my lords, if it please you, don't go past my servant. And if you actually read the words that's written there, they spell out the word Adonai, right? As Aleph.
Ad Hashem.
right. But they spell it out.
But it's Adoni,
Yes, I understand.
which is used frequently in the Torah. You would say, and even in speech, if you're speaking respectfully to someone, you would say, Adoni, my master.
Right.
Just like you goofing off with friends or whatever.
So that's right. So the question becomes, right? You've got this Yud Hey Vav, okay, in the front, the Tetragrammaton in the front, and now what seems to be that he turns to these 3 guys who've walked up, these 3 figures, these whatever they are, who've walked up, and it seems to be that he is saying to them, yo, Adoni, my lords, come, sit down. Don't go past. Don't go past. Sit. Don't go past your servant. Come, sit down. Have a drink. Have a nice cup of coffee. A Danish. I'll wash your feet. We'll refresh you. But what I was surprised to find when I looked up a lot about this thing, because I just found it very striking, was that many rabbis have ruled that the second time when he says Adoni, okay, that they're actually it's a quote of what he is saying, and that he is actually saying, okay, the word for God, which
Adoshem.
Right, okay, and saying, hang on a second, Hadoshem. All right, hang on, don't hold that, put a pin in it, don't walk past me and ignore me. I have to deal with these 3 guys. And rabbis ruled that's what the meaning of that second one, that it's not as it's written, as you see usually translated in the Bible, which is, yo, my friends, come and sit down. Rabbis rules that he's actually talking to God and saying, whoa, hang on a second, I got a call coming in on my cell phone. And it is for this reason, that we have, the Talmud says in Shabbat 127a, greater is hospitality than receiving the divine presence.
Yep.
He says to God, hang on a second, I've got guests.
Yeah, he puts Hashem on hold to serve, but remember what this is teaching us is, what he's doing is he's acknowledging that these travelers are God's creatures. So he's departing from God to serve God in this way that one serves God on this earth, which is the way we can serve God, by caring for one another and being hospitable to one another.
Exactly.
That's
you have
the
to give your
action. That's the
full
action.
focus. There- God lives in each of us, right? And if God is in everything and God is in each of us, you've got essentially God appearing to you in the form of three people, three figures right there. And you have to be able to it's like when you're doing customer service, right? And you're on the phone, you can either be on the phone with someone, but then the person who comes actually to your kiosk or to your workstation, they're standing in your face. You got to deal with them. So this is like a different version, essentially, of it's God in person. It's a holiness. It's three holy things in person. So this is why it becomes, hang on a second. You up there, hang on a second. I've got you down here. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. And it teaches us that one of the ways we can worship God, which is actually more than maybe going and praying, is showing kindness to each other. And in that way, that is a very high level in which we can serve God through our kindness to one another.
Which is what we need.
Yep. Yeah. Think about it. I mean, if you just broke it down and everyone just accepted that, the world would be just a beautiful place.
Well, we actually talk about that. He actually goes on. There's another story that occurs in this parsha that talks about that, right? And I'll just do it very quickly because.
But wait, before we get there, we're going to get there. But I want to get Rabbi McClashley involved with this one because this is totally in his wheelhouse.
Okay.
All right. So I know you know where I'm about to go. Mishkiach. Okay. Put on your Mishkiach hat, and here we go.
Okay.
So what happens is, he convinces them to come in and eat some bread. And it says, Abraham hastened to the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, 3 seahs of meal, knead and make the cakes. Okay, so a seah, now let me ask you, because I'm forgetting, how many seahs of flour were put in the Beit HaMikdash, like went in the offerings? Was it 3 seahs?
Is that an amount?
Yeah, it's a handful. It's
right.
Like how much you would fit in your hand. That's a seah of
in
flour.
the palm of your hand, actually.
Yeah, in the palm. So like what you would grab like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it 3 seahs?
I believe it. I think it is. I didn't
Okay.
have to make
So
sure.
I think it's alluding. I think right now this is alluding to the offerings in the Beit HaMikdash, the sacrifices. There were different levels of sacrifice, and if you were poor and you could not afford to bring a goat or a sheep or a cow, you would bring a seah. You could bring a handful of flour. I think it was 3 handfuls of flour that would then be burned. You do what you can, what's important to you. And remember, like everything that was being brought as a sacrifice, these were all things that were very, very important in daily life. You were literally sacrificing like the food that would be there for your family. You're saying, I trust Hashem, I'm offering it to you, instead of me taking it and making the 3 cakes. We see here 3 seahs of fine flour can make cakes. So we know that there's an importance in this flour for food. And Abraham ran to the cattle, took a calf, and then gave it to the youth who hurried to prepare it. He took cream and milk and the calf that he had prepared and placed them before the angels. And he stood over them beneath the tree and they ate. Now, Rabbi McClashley, tell us how Abraham could possibly put on the table milk and meat.
Right.
How is this possible?
With the way the rabbis explain it, what I learned in yeshiva, of course, he would be over the Isser of Teruvas Chalav Basar, mixing meat and milk. So what the rabbis explain is that he served the milchik or the chalavi. He served the dairy first, and then he served the meat. To be honest with you, I mean, That's the only that would be the only logical explanation, because as you alluded to last week, Avram basically gleaned the Torah from observing nature. So if we accept that, then he would know that you can't combine chalav and basar. So the rabbis explain it that they serve the chalav.
Well, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Chalav, for everyone, chalav is a milk product, and basar would
Is
be
meat.
a meat product. We learn later, kosher does not permit milk and meat to be combined in any circumstance.
Now
So,
it gets more complicated because
I'm trying to simplify
I
it
know
for the
but you-
purpose of this.
just to extrapolate on one thing is that okay, fine, you can eat milk product like cheese or dairy. It's related to the taste. If you rinse your mouth out after eating dairy, unless it's hard cheese, there's different types.
I know, and some people hold. I know where you're going. The Sephardi tradition is you can rinse your mouth out, or you can eat a piece of bread. You can make a motzi, eat a piece of bread
Right.
after eating cheese, and then you can eat meat. Some
Exactly.
people hold that you must wait an hour. After
Yeah, I
eating
was always
dairy
taught 3 hours.
before. No,
I was
You know
always
what?
taught
There's
3.
absolutely nowhere in the Torah, written Torah, in the oral tradition, nowhere. Not you look in the Talmud, you look in the Shulchan Aruch. The whole idea of how long you wait between the meat and milk actually is a minhag, is a custom. I mean, I believe Dutch Jews wait 1 hour. Sephardic Jews wait 6 hours. I think Yekas, German Jews wait 3 hours.
no. Sephardi-
Irish Jews, we just have a mug of Guinness and no, I'm just kidding.
Wait, you mean? Are you talking about the minhag of meat first and then milk?
I mean, there's no consensus of opinion. Actually, there's no source, makor, in halacha, in Jewish law, for how long you're supposed to wait. Different communities have different minhagim.
Yeah, I was taught 3 hours for sure.
That's what German Jews are taught. Yekas are taught 3 hours.
Yeah.
But that's for clarification. 3 hours. What the example he's giving is meat first, then milk.
I was taught 3 hours, didn't matter what happened first. You had to wait, you had to space it. You could eat meat and meat and meat. You could eat dairy and dairy and dairy, but 3 hours between the two. Never the twain shall meet. Within 3 hours.
The way I came up, or the way I observed it coming up, was that if you have dairy like what they call soft cheese, like cottage cheese or something, but if you have sharp cheese like cheddar or something like that, it wasn't so much of an issue. I was taught these things theoretically coming up because we were vegetarian, but I was taught it as a purpose of chinuch, of education. It's very funny. In my house, everything was separate, meat and milk, but we never had meat. But it was just like, well, when you get married, you might not marry a vegetarian, and sure enough, I didn't. And you know, it came in handy. But you know, he's right. There is no source. You can't point to any source that's a definitive source that says this is the way all Jews have to observe it in terms of separating the meat and milk. Some people, like you said, they'll wait between even milk and meat. Some people say, no, you just rinse your mouth out if it's like a soft cheese. Other people say, well, if it's a hard cheese like cheddar cheese, they'll go the same way as if it were meat. Wait 6 hours. So, you know, it's pretty much it differs from community to community. Yekas, I know German Jews, they observe 3 hours.
So there you go. So that was my question as to how this could be done. So it looks like Abram assumed that they were Sephardi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would make sense. It's the Middle East that they're Arab. It would make sense. But he served the milk first, and then he waited, and then brought the meat. That's the traditional explanation.
Yeah, because you're not even supposed to put them on the same table.
Well, the way the rabbis would explain it, I guess he didn't. I don't know, but
Yeah. But
Maybe
then
he has two end
there's
tables.
you can use the same table, but you can put a tablecloth on one side and put you know
in the Gemara, I believe there was a Manda Omar, one opinion that he was actually using soy meat. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you bring up an
burger.
interesting.
It goes on.
So you're bringing up an interesting point, and we're going to be learning about this in my shul. What about this lab-created meat? What happens with the lab-created
That is
meat?
something we actually had a meeting. The OK was discussing this, and the opinions are all over the place. And honestly, they asked me, Rabbi McLashley, what's your opinion? I said, I don't have anyone. I just want to Guinness and sit and listen to what the rest of the rabbis are saying. But we really tackled this question.
Yeah. So what were the
It's a
debates?
fascinating question.
There were some people that hold that it had the same din, the same law ruling as meat, even though it's not meat. The other issue that would come in, the issue I would have is what they call marit ayin. It looks like meat. So there, basically, somebody see you eating it with cheese, they're going to think, But I'm saying that doesn't really hold too well with me, because what about soy meat? Soy meat,
Yeah.
looks like meat, So I'm saying, truthfully, there is no definitive ruling on it yet. It's like an ongoing process where they're debating where to go with this.
Well, like all good Jewish organizations, there will be dissent amongst the ranks, and there'll be people who split up, and they'll do the Ashkenazi way, or the Sephardic way, or the New York way, or the San Francisco way, or and that's what'll end up happening. But I think it's a fascinating question about the lab grown meat. And
well, you take it from the pasuk, the verse. I'm sorry, the verse in the Torah is not to boil a kid in its mother's milk. Obviously, if it's lab grown, there's no mother, there's no milk. So I mean, if you're just going from what the pasuk, what the verse in the Torah says. But like I said, you get into other issues like marit ayin, it looks like meat, or maybe you could get into the issue of what they call shapar tageter, breaking the fence, that if people start eating it, it looks like meat, it tastes like meat, they could come to actually think, well, what's the difference? I don't know. They're all over the place on this one. This is going to be an ongoing debate for some time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating. So we could have cheeseburgers soon, very soon. We could be eating cheeseburgers. And then the question is, like, as a vegetarian, are you eating meat? If it's lab meat.
I personally, as a vegetarian, I wouldn't eat it because I don't eat meat. I think that believe me, it's a mitzvah to eat meat. And a lot of people attack me. The former chief rabbi of Ireland actually wrote a book, A Jewish Case for Vegetarianism. And for some reason in my community, like I'd mentioned, Rabbi Herschel McNabb, he came up vegetarian. Sarah, I don't know why, but you have a lot of people in my chavura that are vegetarian. I guess it was cost prohibitive, kosher meat in Ireland. They had sheikhtim, they had people that slaughtered the meat, but most of it was for export. I think it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these PETA people. In the Torah it says, "In samcha ela basa v'yayin." In the Gemara it says, "There's no joy without meat and without meat and wine." It says, of course, basa v'dagam roy lamelech. Meat and fish, it's appropriate to serve it for Shabbat, and tied into the idea of Einig Shabbos, Einig Shabbat, the idea of what is it, the joy of the Shabbat. And my wife is a strict carnivore. I mean, she won't eat anything unless it's been crawling around. She's a strict carnivore. She's very what I'd say, she's very strict on eating meat. And I think it's wonderful. I'm not saying, when I always have to defend myself, especially in my community. Wait a minute, you're a rabbi and you're a vegetarian. Don't you realize the kabbalah, the this, the that? I'm not a vegetarian because of, I'm saying that it's just, that's the way I came up. I'm comfortable with it.
Yep. Someone just brought up in the chat that does it have cleft hooves and chew its cud? No, it's a lab meat. So is it even kosher? How about that? How about that as a question?
Well,
How do you determine its kosher?
Right, so it doesn't have the simonim, the signs that one attributes to a kosher animal, but it's not an animal lechatchila. It comes. The thing it says, the way I would look at it, it's a byproduct or it's a product of it. It's like kind of like
it's like cheese. It's a byproduct of an animal.
Yeah, it's kind of like davash honey. Think about this, davash honey. Can you eat a bee? No, you can't eat a bee. There's only one type of insect that's permissible to be eaten, and that's a type of locust. And there is one group of Jews that say they know what that locust is. Most of us don't know what it is. So, I don't know of any of my friends that have a locust cholent. Okay, I don't. That might be a market niche there, locust cholent.
Yeah.
But I don't know of anyone who eats locusts. But that's the only type of insect that technically. But davash honey is a product of the bee. They produce it. So even though the bee itself isn't kosher, the honey is kosher. Now that's interesting because think about it. Milk from a pig wouldn't be kosher.
Yeah, but the meat, the initial draw of the meat cells is not a product of the cow. It's a product of the shechting of the cow. We know you can't just take a limb off a live animal, so it had to be shechted. And it's not like milk because, again, the milk is a product from the animal, like honey would be a product from a bee. So this is a reproduction of the meat that was from the slaughtered animal.
Right.
That's just in a lab. It's through, I guess, cell mitosis. It just continues to grow into a delicious filet mignon.
But you can't have it without the cow. The fact of the matter is the cow, it comes from a cow. You can't just create it. You can't create it through the process of abiogenesis, okay?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe
like bovine growth hormones or products like that.
Well, okay. I don't know if you heard the question, but Leah is asking, what about things like bovine growth hormone and so forth? And so I think superficially, I would say if it's just a pure chemical that's not necessary, bovine growth hormone is a genetically derived chemical, and what we've done is we've implanted, taken cells, changed their DNA, and made them produce bovine growth hormone. And actually, I did the person who did that. His name was Dr. Luck, who was my biology professor at Oberlin, and but so those are like products that aren't. I think they're different than preservatives. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. Insulin. What about that?
And it leads to another question. The question is that these artificial hormones that are injected into the cows, and that's what the former chief rabbi of Ireland, you can look it up online. He wrote a book, A Jewish Case for Vegetarianism. It was distributed widely by the PETA group organization for a while, but it brings up the issue of what we alluded to earlier, Sar Balei Chaim, causing suffering to a living creature. And they've found that many of these hormones produce tumors or cancers or can have a debilitating effect on the animal. And even though they say that it's in such that it only passes on to humans in minuscule quantities, the question would be, if you're doing something that would cause suffering to the animal, would that render it? You can get into those questions. I'm not a Pesach. I don't paskin. I don't decide one way or another. I'm not deciding what is or isn't.
You're an enforcer.
I'm not an enforcer.
You are an enforcer. You just enforce the rules. You don't make them up.
Right. But I don't. I'm not. Like Rabbi McNabb, when people come to me, I say, look, if you want what we call psak halacha, the final decision, consult your local Orthodox rabbi, because every rabbi, I have smicha, the big deal. Everybody has a different opinion on these things, and it's not a good idea to ask 3 rabbis and then just choose which one you like. No, I mean, it's not a good idea because you're going to get confused that way. So I tell people, pick it. That's the meaning. That's the literal aseh lecha rav. Get yourself a rabbi and go with, because if you're just gonna go, you're gonna make it a multiple choice. I'm gonna consult 10 rabbis until I find one that gives me, yeah, sure. You want a McDonald's cheeseburger? Go for it. It's no good that way. It's no good that way because you can always find somebody who technically might be a rabbi who's going to say what you want to hear, and then it's just it's a free for all. It's we call it balagan.
Yeah. So should we go?
Yeah.
Go on a little bit more about the parsha. I have I wanted to I have one more point really that I noticed that I thought was interesting, which is that in this section, right? This is where God and Abraham are negotiating for the fate of what we call Sodom, right? Sodom, okay? And God says he's going to destroy it, and Abraham starts negotiating immediately. Like, hey, what if we find 50 good, righteous people? Will you destroy it then? No. What about 45? No. And so he finally gets God down to 10. Says 10. And with that, there's like not really a response. It's almost like God leaves the conversation, like he just says like takes off, essentially. And if you read the next line, it's already, they're sending 3 messengers, the 3 figures, the 3 angels from before, right, to the city to go pull out a medivac SEAL Angel 3 operation to extract Lot, right? They're coming in, and they come in. Lot sees them, welcomes them into the home, right? And everybody else gets pissed off that Lot is showing such hospitality, very Abraham-like, right? Showing these strangers hospitality.
All right, but that's wait.
What? I haven't even gotten to the point yet.
The math doesn't work.
What do you mean the math doesn't work?
3 angels came.
Right.
Then Avram served 3 angels.
Yeah.
Right? The men disguised as angels. So lesson 1 we learn is hospitality towards strangers.
Right, sure.
And Abraham is, at this point, we can consider him a Jew, and he's showing hospitality to non-Jews and to Arab. Yeah. Okay, so we're agreeing these are Arabs. Okay, so that's number 1 in terms of lessons we need to understand. Number 2, so there's a message that comes through Hashem about having a child, and then we learn Sarah laughs because of this notion of having a child, and Hashem gets kind of pissy about it and says, "What do you think
he laughs in God's face.
Yeah, you think I can't do this?" So the other thing is that God can do anything, no matter how outlandish it might be. God can do anything. But let's get to the verse 15. So 18, 16.
There is another way to understand Vatitzchak Sarah and Sarah laughed, but we'll leave that for right now.
Yeah, so it says, so the men got up from there. We're assuming the 3 men got up from there and gazed down towards Sodom, while Abraham walked with them to escort them. So now another tradition of Jews is when someone is leaving your house, you walk them out the door and you walk with them a little ways, because this is what Abraham did. And then it says, and Hashem said, and here's the quote, "Shall I conceal from Abraham what I do?" He's not saying that to Abraham. Clearly, Hashem.
Kosher certifies vegan product to ensure low requirement.
So surely Hashem is speaking to the angels who are there, and Hashem is saying, "Shall I conceal from Abraham what I do?"
Yeah, he's asking the angels, right? Like, hey, what do you guys think? You think I ought to, not tell him this?
now that surely to become a great and mighty nation, all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by him. For I've loved him because he commands his children, his household after him, should keep the way of Hashem, doing charity and justice, in order that Hashem might then bring upon Abraham that to be spoken. So do I tell Abraham what's about to go down because of the promise I made him? So now, why would Hashem say that to the angels? What is Hashem worried about that Abraham is about to do? Right? Because he's promised Abraham everything. So I think he believes that when Abraham hears that God is going to destroy the city, Abraham's going to say, you know what? I want no part of this. This is not what I signed up for. I signed up for a religion where strangers come, I wash their feet, I serve them. This is kindness, and this is not the kindness of God. And what do we see happen? So Hashem said, so now Hashem's like talking out loud again to like not Abraham, but he's talking to these angels, we're assuming, because the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah has become great, and because their sin has been very grave, I will descend and see if they act in accordance with its outcry, which has come to me, then destruction. And if not, I will know. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Hashem is saying, I'm going to come right down. I'm going to check it out. And he's talking to the angels, clearly not Abraham. Then it says, the Parsha goes on to say, the men had turned from there and went to Sodom, while Abraham was standing before Hashem.
Right.
So now Abraham goes back to Hashem. Once the guests leave, Abraham picks up the conversation that he left off before. Okay.
Right. And it's a negotiation. He's like,
and then it says Abraham came forward and said, will you stamp out the righteous along with the wicked? So now he's bargaining. So Abraham did hear what Hashem is going to do. So maybe in that verse 20, he is talking to Hashem. But let's fast forward. So he does the bargaining that you spoke of. And then let's hop to chapter 19. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening.
right. Yes.
What happened to the other one?
Yes. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I had that question too, but I was going to leave it for
What happened to the other one?
you. Tell me.
I don't know.
You don't know, right?
I don't know.
I saw that too.
I don't know.
I saw that too. I don't know.
And the math doesn't work.
The math
and
doesn't math.
Matter cannot be created nor destroyed. I mean, that's so.
Right.
There's this angel who must still be with Abraham. That's the only thing that I can think. But the verse before says that they left. It says that they left, meaning all three left to Sodom and Gomorrah, but only two came to Sodom.
Right. You are absolutely right. The math ain't math in there. And it was funny that you bring this out because I have another the point.
Wait, here it is. Here it is. Rashi has it. Rashi has it.
What does he say?
Okay, Rashi has it.
What's
One
Rashi
angel came to destroy Sodom, and the other, Raphael, who had healed Abraham, came to save Lot. The third angel had departed after concluding his mission of announcing that Sarah would have a son.
Yeah, okay.
So here the two visitors are called angels, but when they came to Abraham, they were called men. When they came to Abraham, God was with them, making them seem no more significant than ordinary mortals. Alternatively, in the presence of Abraham, to whom angels were commonplace, they were called men. So not so in the presence of Lot, who was overawed by them. So the reference here is the two angels came to Sodom, because before the Torah is referring to three men.
Mm-hmm.
And now this, for the first time, the Torah in the text is referring to two angels, not the men, as they were referred to in their interaction with Abraham. Is everyone following this? Is this too?
Yes. Aaron, did you read what I wrote?
No.
I wrote you a message.
No, I'm too busy.
No, but come on, it's about the thing. I want to answer that question that they said that the Impossible Burger King was certified kosher, and that the OU kosher certification is on their packaging.
Yeah, they did, but there are rabbis, there are dissenting voices, and it's been an ongoing machloket. But I agree that the OU did certify it. But lab-grown meat, I understand that might be Impossible Burgers. I'm not sure, but lab-grown meat, they had an entire article on this that was sent out concerning. Not everyone. In other words, it's not a matter of, as it says in the Gemara, "Kuli alma lo pligi bli safek." Everyone agrees. There's no dissension, no doubt. Not everyone is on page with that. I do not weigh in with my opinion on it. I'm simply saying that there are dissenting voices. I don't weigh in with my opinion one way or another. I'm saying that if the OU, they gave it a hechsher, and people are comfortable being somech on that hechsher, relying on it, then, that's fine. That's wonderful, great. But there are rabbis that are still have this question up in the air. So that's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, I would like to do a little talk a little bit about the math, actually, about the math. We talked earlier about, God is negotiating. It's like, should it be 45, 10? Okay, we get to this 10 business. 10 is a number that sticks out a lot in Judaism, like 10 men for minyan and 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And I just want to point out, like, pick up a little bit where we left off. Like, the angels come, and the two people are there, and they reveal that they're there not just to save Lot, okay, not just Lot, but they say to Lot, they say to him, who else is here? Who else is in the house? All right, because who else is here? And what you have is Lot's two son-in-laws, right? That's two people. His two sons, that's four people. And then he has two daughters, that's a total of six people, right? Then he has two daughters that are not the two wives of his son-in-laws, okay? He actually has in his clan of people 4 daughters, 2 of whom are married, the 2 unmarried, 2 sons, and plus Lot, and the whole family makes up the magic number of 10. If you add Lot, and so essentially there's 10 people there. And if Lot could have convinced all 10 of them, if he could have convinced all 10 of them to join along and be righteous with him, there would be no fall for Sodom. But that's not what happened. Right? Oh, I can't hear you now. He's off mic. You have to put, there you go. What? So what'd you say?
So clearly they were not righteous, all of them.
Right. He couldn't get his whole family. He had to try to convince them, like, hey, come. And he couldn't get them to do it.
Yeah.
He essentially couldn't get 10 people together, even his own family.
Even
he
his
only
own
get
family.
his wife and the 2 unmarried daughters.
Well, you know what? You know why? I mean, he's so Lot goes out to the angels in the marketplace, shuts the door behind them, and says, "I beg of you, my brothers, do not act wickedly. See now, I have 2 daughters who have never known a man. I'll bring them out to you and do what you please."
Right.
So so what's happening is the people of Sodom know that 2 strangers came to Lot's house. And as the story goes, they wanted to sodomize them. They were like, oh, new fresh meat. And so Lot then says to the people, forget those 2 guys, take my daughters instead.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
That's ick.
It is very ick. It's very ick. Yeah, the only thing I can the thing that I found most fascinating about this parsha is that the numbers of the people that add up, and it took me a little while to calculate how.
Yeah, that's good math. That's really good. That's really good.
It's like he's God tells him, he's negotiating with, can you find 10 people? He can't even find 10 people in the 10 people that he has in his own
family.
In his own family. It's a bummer.
So here's something that's cool that happens. That for those of you who don't know the story, what ends up happening, I'm summarizing it in a very summarial kind of way. The angels say, get out of the city, don't look back. Don't look back. And as everyone knows, Lot's wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt.
A delicious pillar of salt.
Yeah, it's not quite Himalayan salt, it's Lotian salt.
Lottian,
Lottian
salt. It's not paying.
Yeah. But maybe this is the Torah alluding to the fact that, when there's a destruction, when there's something that that happens, a calamity that happens in our own lives, that we just got to keep it moving. We just don't look back. Like literally, don't look back. Don't dwell on what has just happened. Keep it moving.
Well, one of the things we talked, it's really, we've talked about Noah and Abraham and why Noah is not considered to be the first Jew and Abraham is. And one of the reasons that was brought up was that Noah didn't have the same maturity. He didn't go out and warn everybody, whereas Abraham does. Okay, and if you think about it, Lot, he's welcoming to these strangers too. The difference between him and Abraham is the same difference between Abraham and Noah, right? Noah doesn't tell anybody what's going to happen. Lot does, but he's ineffective. He goes to his family and he says, let's get the hell out. This is a problem. And they call him a joker, right? His son-in-laws call him, they demean him and they say, you're a joker. So Lot does try to help the other people, but he's a failure at it. So he's like one little micro step above maybe Noah. You know what I mean? Like Noah doesn't try, but Abraham tries and succeeds, which is like the third level, the higher level.
Yeah, so the Torah is giving us these examples on how to conduct yourself. And one of the things I think that's unique about Abraham, and when I just discuss this with people from other religions, is the fact that the Torah is encouraging us. I mean, the father of Judaism is debating with God, questioning God's wisdom in destroying. Really? I mean, what do we have? We say, like, in what other religion do you have, not just a person, but like a forefather, like the father of the religion, questioning the maker? It's pretty heavy duty. What's that?
Moshe Rabbeinu does the same thing.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm going to make a people out of you. I don't need them. I'm going to make a nation out of you. And he says, if you're going to take them out of the book of life, count me out. I'm out of here. I mean,
that's my point. My point goes back to this idea that Judaism is about a relationship with God. It's not just subjugation. There's an element of emunah, trust, and belief and reliance on God, but there's a relationship that we have where we directly pray to God, we directly make petitions to God, we directly argue with God, and this is the way we have this relationship with God. It's a one-on-one, if we can anthropomorphize it, a one-on-one relationship with God, where we're always there with God, God is always there with us, and we have this open communication. And it's very interesting to see Avraham step up and challenge that entity, that essence that he understood created everything and is greater than everything, and he stood up to it.
I have to beg your indulgence on just one thing, because it's
Yeah.
the gentleman that asked the question about Beyond Burger that did receive certification from the OU. I did not want him to think, chas v'shalom, that I'm saying that it's not
Good.
kosher or that there's anything like that. I'm not saying that. The OU, they give, for example, okay, Chabad. The OK in Los Angeles, the rabbi that I supervise the restaurant is a big Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Kesselman. Now in Chabad, like, you know, for example, some Jews, they won't eat something if it's not what they call Chalav Yisrael. Okay, if it hasn't been, so you know, OU will certify product that's not Chalav Yisrael. A Chabadnik will not eat anything that's not Chalav Yisrael. I'm not chas v'shalom saying in any way that it's not kosher. I'm simply saying that there are rabbis that are still studying it. The OU, anyone who's somech on that hashgacha, I'm saying I personally would not see a problem. If they're somech on that hashgacha and they're comfortable with it, I don't see a problem.
But translate
All I'm saying
that.
that it's that there's rabbinical supervision, right? And if it's under that rabbinical supervision and you're comfortable with it, then you know.
But like going to the Burger King and getting the Impossible Burger, which is kosher.
No, that doesn't work. That does not work.
Yeah, can you explain why?
Can
you explain why?
It doesn't work because of the what they prepare it on. I mean, you don't know the stove they prepare it on. They could have just been have chazan tray. You know.
Yeah. So there's
a bacon sandwich.
Exactly.
It's not just about the which animals are kosher and stuff like that. It's about how the food is prepared.
Processed and prepared. That's what I do. Make sure that's processed and prepared in accordance with Jewish law.
I mean, exactly. And that's why I told them, no, I don't eat it because of that.
Yes. It's kind of like
you're right, Gabriel. I mean, you're absolutely right. I just wanted to clarify that I'm not saying that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the cooties.
People take that as a red flag, as a green arrow, and they said, "Yeah, we can go to Burger King and eat." And I said, "No, you cannot."
No, you cannot.
No, we can. Absolutely. We can. I said, "No, no,
absolutely not."
Preparations. I said, "There's so many other parts of the preparation that it violates."
Right. Not even a salad, because I mean, you don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Right. There could be bugs in the salad.
But Rabbi, I'm just having a salad. And I'm saying, you know, I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, you can't have a salad. I mean, you know.
Well, this has been an interesting parsha.
Yeah, we didn't even. We got past the third line.
We got past. That's an amazement, an accomplishment unto itself. Right? We got past the third line, but we didn't. We spent at least half the time not talking about the parsha, which is the sign of a good parsha, really.
Yeah. It is.
Interesting. You know, Avram represents Chesed, Yitzchak, Gevurah, Yaakov, Tiferet. And you know, the thing is that
wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Explain the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Avram represents compassion, kindness. Yitzchak, Gevurah,
right
like strength or the ability to withhold.
The left hand.
Yaakov, Tiferet is a balance between the two. In other words. So the idea is that, you know, it says, like, you know, Chesed, the Jewish people were recognized because we're in Hebrew, Rachamim b'nei Rachamim, compassionate people from compassionate people. So the idea of Chesed is certainly one of the simanim, one of the signs by which you recognize a Jew. But by the same token, we learn that showing too much chesed, an imbalance, showing rachmanis or compassion or mercy toward Rishayim, the evil, it says is a form of achzariut, is a form of cruelty, because you're enabling. So the idea is that you can't be too much on the side of chesed, compassion, or too much on the side of gevurah, which is strength or withholding or like sternness. there has to be a balance. And I think that that's one of the things with Avram that, he was arguing with God, because that is the yesod. That's the foundation. That's the foundation of what defines us as Jews. Rachamim and Rachamim. Compassionate people from compassionate people. But, there had to be the balance. Yitzchak comes along with the element. His defining characteristic was gevura, strength, the ability to withhold, and then Yaakov achieves the balance. Just, I don't know, something I was going to throw in this sort of say that that while chesed, compassion, is certainly very important, there has to be a balance. It can't just be all chesed, and it can't be all gevura. There has to be what do you say? Bishvil HaZahav, the golden path.
Balance. There has to be a balance.
It has to be
Right.
right.
And that's a
Listen,
Tiferet.
all the ingredients have to come in the right amounts. Otherwise, your cake tastes terribly, right? If you put in too much salt, it's not good. If you put in too many eggs, not good. You put in
That's right.
same thing. So it's
My
like
wife knows that. I mean,
Chesed,
there has to be a balance
Keter.
between the Guinness and the whiskey. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what's interesting is Rabbi McCloskey is getting us into, he's introducing, which is really nice, is because we're called this the Kabbalah, what is it called? The Kabbalist Parsha? What do you call it? Rabbi
The
Yirmiyahu?
Kabbalah-
Tarot
part-
class.
yeah.
And what
Yeah.
I'm saying is tarot is not, this is not a course on divination. It's not a course on it's a course on the Kabbalistic, tarot is very
No. Rabbi, my point in bringing that up is you're bringing in actual Kabbalah to this explanation,
right.
Because I don't know if you plan on covering this, Rabbi Yirmiyahu, at some future point. The Kabbalah talks about different attributes of personality of ourselves that also correlate with attributes of God. And then we see how these attributes also correlate with the fathers, our forefathers. And that's what Rabbi McCloskey was alluding to when he said Avram is chesed. Chesed is the right hand, and Yaakov is gevura, which is strength, which is the left hand. Yitzchak is the left hand. And then Yaakov is Tiferet, which is the synthesis of the two. And then there's Yesod, which is the foundation. And it's a diagram. I'm sure many people have seen the diagram. It looks very similar in some ways to chakra, the chakra diagram. In little ways, it's different. But this is diagramming out aspects of personality that exist here and also above. So above as below, so above, and right. And again, we're going back to one of those Hermetic principles that is also a Kabbalistic principle.
Actually,
really interesting stuff.
The Kabbalah predates that, because it talks about the Olam Elyon, the upper world, Elim Tachton, lower world, and then the four worlds in Kabbalah, Tzila, Bria, Yitzhak, Asiya, which is, I translate. I'll save that for the lecture. I don't want to divert.
Yeah. It's really complex stuff. I actually found a very good podcast I'm listening to that is breaking it down. And it's been a very confusing, complex, in my opinion, very confusing and complex idea. It's said not right. Many people shouldn't study Kabbalah until they're 40. And I could see why. The rabbi alludes to the fact that because Kabbalah starts to talk about God in anthropomorphic forms with attributes, the danger is that a simple person, someone who's not mature enough or evolved enough, will start to think of God in terms of limitations to these attributes, as opposed to the expansiveness and the infinite God that we all recognize as our God. So
Don't tell any of my colleagues I'm learning it before 40, because I learned it before 40.
Yeah. Well, I say, I'm only now, I've learned it before, but I'm only now beginning to, I think, grasp it. And I'm 52
There is no
now.
grasping it, really. It talks about concepts that are not graspable. For example, it talks about tzimtzum, which is limitation, contraction. God contracted in order to not allow finiteness to exist. And then Shvirat HaKelim, the vessels broke. And then the tzotzo, the divine sparks, became embedded in the physical world. We do mitzvahs to liberate these sparks to form a merkava, a chariot for the Shekhinah, for the divine presence. What? I mean, yeah. Can I read Sefer Yetzirah, Sefer Zohar, and the mystical text? Sure, I can read and translate it. I do it with a master. Even though I've been learning it for a long time, I still learn it with someone. And the thing is, you learn these concepts, and you're like, but what is it talking about? It's interesting. Rabbi Akiva, and he was called Rabbi Akiva Hager in the yeshiva.
Yeah.
Whether he came from Gerim or whether he himself was a convert, but Rabbi Akiva was the Rosh Lachamim, the head of the sages.
We all agree he did tshuva, so he was a balei tshuva. So
Right,
meaning
but
that he was
either a
non-observant.
convert or he came from converts. He's called
Yeah.
Rabbi Akiva Hager. That's how they refer to him in the Talmud.
Yeah.
And it says that 4 rabbis went into the garden of mystical speculation, which the term is Pardes, which stands for Pshat, Remez, Drush, Sod. Deeper levels of understanding the Torah. And it says of all of the 4 rabbis that went in, one went Meshuggah, one went crazy, I believe one committed suicide, one became a heretic, an Epicurus. It says Rabbi Akiva, because he entered in peace, departed in peace. So what we can learn from this, or at least the way I understand it, is that Rabbi Akiva came in understanding, hey, look, when you're talking about the Sitrei HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, the secrets of the universe, you're not going to be able to understand. You have to be at peace to say, look, I know, Ein od milvado, that there's nothing else beside God. I know that God does not have a guf, that God is not a person, place, or thing. I know this. So because I know this, whatever I encounter that, like you said, because it anthropomorphizes a lot of these things, I understand Dibra Torah Kanlashon B'nai Adam. The Torah speaks in the tongues of man, and these are just metaphors, not meant to be taken literally. But as you correctly pointed out, the simple-minded person, can really, really get dragged into, the wrong direction with this if they don't approach it.
Well, we saw that in the movie Pi, even.
Right.
An example of that in the movie Pi. That's the whole basis of essentially, right? Like,
right.
If you go pulling at some of these threads, these esoteric threads, it's gonna break your brain.
Right.
Okay. And that's it.
I'm an Irish rabbi. See, I was Meshuggah when I was born, so I can't go Meshuggah. I'm immune.
Developed a
Oh, you
tolerance.
know what?
I understand, like I said, I understand that it's metaphorical. So.
And we left out, we didn't even get to Akedat Yitzchak.
Akedat Yitzchak. That's a good one. We can save that one for next week. That's one of the big.
Yeah, that's huge.
Come on.
Well, next time
That's huge.
we'll have to do it.
And what I'd like to do with that, with everyone permitting, there's a piyut that is said, Sfardim say, it did make it into the Chabad liturgy for Slichot, which is called Imafes. And Imafes tells the story of the Akedat Yitzchak, of Abraham being commanded to sacrifice his son. And is written by a German rabbi, I believe in the Middle Ages. It could have been 1600s, that's past Middle Ages. But it made it from this German rabbi's poem, it made it into the Sephardic liturgy for Slichot, which is said in the early morning prayers for the whole entire month of Elul. I always found that fascinating that this German rabbi's poem made it into that, and it's absolutely beautiful poem. When I recite it, and it has a melody, I frequently just lose it. It's very emotional.
Now, before we conclude, I want to get there's something for you to think about and bring your insight for next one on the Akedat Yitzchak. There's a book that I learned in Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim. It was a Musar yeshiva. It was ethics. They taught, well, not Musar, however you want to translate Musar, I don't know. But anyway, in the book Orchot Tzadikim, which means paths of the righteous, I think it was under,
Chaim
if I'm
Lusado.
not mistaken, it was under the gate of Shar Zerizus. Zerizus, I guess you'd translate as alacrity, it's eagerness, it's like a person with alacrity is the way you would translate it. And it says that in that book, it says that Abraham, by the Akedah Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, was to achieve that level of Deveket Hashem, closeness or that intimacy with God. He was Mavatel Ahavet Bano. He actually negated the love for his own son, sublimated it, as it were, in order to, because I mean, this is a level of, when you think about it, we say making sacrifices for God. Mesirat HaNefesh is what they call it, but this level of, it would have been easier, I think, for Abram to sacrifice his own life than to stand over there and have his son bound to the altar. So the question I've always had, and I've never gotten an answer, nor do I have an answer, is, was it a fair test? I have to accept, because I believe in the Torah, because I believe in Hashem, and because, I have to accept that, that Hashem doesn't give an unfair test. It would be an unfair test for me, but for someone on the level of Abram, obviously it wasn't an unfair test, but still, we pointed out, but Titzchak Sarah laughed. What, I'm going to give birth at my advanced age? Abram knew that, so the thing is that you say, well, Abram had a level of nevuah, of prophecy. Sarah, even greater, the Gemara says, it had an even greater level of prophecy. Thing is, even if Abraham knew, Yitzchak didn't, and the idea is you're hovering over your son with a dagger. He's about to be a korban, a sacrifice. You say, it's really tough to say, is that a fair test? The only answer I've ever been given is that, and I alluded to it in the previous discussion, and this is from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. Everyone at the Happy Minyan would know about Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, that it says, what does it say? V'motcha Sarah. Sarah died. Rashi interprets that Parcha Nishmasa, that her soul flew away like a bird. Rav Shlomo Carlebach, as I alluded to, said, no, there's another, well, yes, but there's another way of understanding it. Parcha can also mean to bloom or to blossom like a rose, like a flower. And her soul bloomed when she realized she had raised a worthy successor to Abram, someone who was willing to, Yitzchak wasn't trembling, afraid. He wasn't looking for the exit. He was willing to die al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's name. And that's ultimately, and there's another interpretation that says Avram misunderstood the whole thing. The word, it's a word play that Hashem was really saying, bring him up, raise him up, not to.
That's a big mistake.
Yeah. And that's why it only required
I really misinterpreted that one.
Right. There is an explanation like that out there, which but it only required a malach. Abram, Vayomer Hineni. Abram, here I am. It only required an angel to tell him not. God Himself had to deliver tell him to execute, to sacrifice his son. But a mere angel could say, hey, scratch that idea. Bad idea. So,
Yeah,
it's a really rich thing, Akedah Yitzchak, and I've struggled with it back and forth.
Yeah.
Any insights you have our next meeting, I would dearly love to hear somebody else's.
Yeah, we could maybe we should do a special talk. I'm serious. So maybe we should do one just on Akedah Yitzchak.
Just on Akedah Yitzchak, because that is such a rich topic.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And you know, the question I have is, if it's a test for Abraham, why is it called Akedat Yitzchak? Why isn't it referred to as some type of test for Abraham?
Right, Nisayan Avram
In
or
my
something
opinion,
or whatever. Nisa, you know.
Yitzchak is 35 years old at the time, so he clearly knows what's going on. He
Yeah.
knows what's going on, and yet he submits to this. And so think about the trauma that a child would go through, a man would go through with his father holding the knife over him. I mean, it's the story. There's so
Yeah,
much.
you'd
to
be
it.
like, Dad, you're crazy. Get off of me. What is wrong with you? You would go nuts. You'd be like, I'm sitting here on the foundation stone and you're like over me with a dagger?
What's interesting though is that Yitzchak never raises a tumult. He never says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like you guys are funny. He never says, "You're crazy. I want to get out of here. Let me out of here." What's going
He
on?
doesn't say a word.
He's a willing accomplice.
No, he does. He says, "Where's the ram?" He says, "Where's the ram?"
"Where's the ram?" Okay,
Where's
fine.
the ram?
And then he
So
gets
you're
a
right.
clue. But the thing is that he was willing to die al Kiddush Hashem. He was willing to do it. He was
All
willing
right,
to
I'll
do
be
it.
the ram. Oh,
Yeah, what-
just call me the ram.
Do you answer the part that was left out was him
I'm an
saying
Aries.
the part that was left out is him asking Avram, "Is this Halloween or something? Like what's going on?"
He's
That's
like,
why Avram waited till he was 35 so that child services didn't get involved.
Yeah.
what? You know what? You know what? You know what Isaac said? He said, "What in the Avodah Zarah is this?"
Well, you know, that's interesting you mentioned that, though, because the people who were over the Avodah Zarah, human sacrifice was commonly practiced.
That's right.
And that's the situation to show, hey, look, you know, our God does not require human sacrifice.
Right.
You know,
And
he just requires you to overpay on your cheese and meat.
Yep.
That's what Isaac says for sure. What? All right.
I'm sorry, I know I'm terrible.
Leave it. This is a really good place to leave.
All right.
I get that all
Everybody.
the time on my Facebook stuff. People say, "What in the Avodah Zarah is this?" So now I can finally use that line.
So let's leave it like this, okay? Let's leave the major theme in the parsha here is kindness. And one way for us, a very important way for us to worship God is to see the God in one another and care for one another and put each other first before ourselves. And that's what Avram did. And that's the opening of the story, Vayeira, to see Hashem appeared. And that's how, if Hashem is appearing to us, this is how we are going to show up. We're going to show up in a way, and we're going to appear to others and honor the God and others and be kind. And we can transform the world with our acts of kindness. So
Right. Anyone can be an angel. Exactly. You have to treat everyone.
That ties it up. Just, I tell you. No, really, he tied it all up. I mean, you know.
So let's keep it going. Let's keep it rolling. And the next person you see, like the next person you see, the next person you speak to, from your heart, recognize the God in them, and be kind. Just be kind. That's it. And perform an act of kindness. You know. So love you all, and I look forward to next week. Bezrat Hashem, we'll have a nice, exciting talk, and then. Rabbi Yirmiyahu, if you want to put together a session on Akedat Yitzchak, I'd be happy to do an extra study session on Akedat Yitzchak. It's a very important story. I'm sorry we didn't get to it, but it's a major event, and we could spend 2 hours on it. But a 1 hour would definitely be welcome.
We could definitely bore people for 3 hours, maybe even.
Good.
Oh, and isn't that Dr. Jeremy? The picture you want, I'm going to get to you later on tonight. I have Brad Pitt coming over to stand in for me, so he's going to be my body double.
Okay. Shalom, everybody.
All right, and good
Love
night.
you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Besimcha, with happiness and joy. Okay.
Shalom.
You guys, take care.